I'll start. We'll start. It's 7:32. So welcome everyone to the Melbourne to Osaka training number 2 session on boat preparation. And I'll just go through how it will work tonight. So the session is currently being recorded. We've got a copy will be put onto the Osaka website. And if you've got a different name, put your name and your boat in the chat, just so that we can catch all the attendees at this presentation. And all interaction will be via the chat is the preference, so don't try and turn your microphone on. Leave your video off is a preference, because it just plays around with the data speed. And obviously stay muted unless we've asked you to speak. Okay, so questions will be using the chat function, and the questions will come at the end of each presenter. We'll allow for 5 to 10 minutes for any questions. Okay, so tonight's presenters and topics are myself as the moderator, that's Paul Roberts, and we've got Kerry McAllister, who's from Predict Wind, who's going to do the satellite comms and sat phone using Predict Wind and Iridium. And then we've got Martin Vaughan, who's going to do the engine tools and spares. And then we've got Ray Shaw, who's going to do the stability requirements and the hull construction compliance. And then we've also got Simon Dryden, who's going to do the boat and crew compliance with looking at the regs and the notice of race. And then we've got Rod Smallman, who's going to give us a presentation on Watermakers. Okay, so each presenter will be approximately 20 minutes, and then we'll have a 5 to 10 minutes Q&A session at the end. Okay, so Kieran McMaster's going to be our first presenter. So Kieran's got over 100,000 nautical miles to a name, having competed in the Whitbread and the Volvo Ocean races and multiple Sydney Hobart races. So very experienced ocean sailor. In 2018, Kieran sailed in the all-female Sydney Hobart crew on Wild Oats 10 and has extensive experience in TB52s, match racing and international fleet racing. Kieran hails from a 3rd-generation sailmaking family owned by the Boyd and McMaster Sailmakers, which is the oldest sailmaking company in the Southern Hemisphere, now Doyle's New Zealand. So that's a bit of history there. So currently Kieran works at Predict Wind, heading the support team. So I'll hand over to Kieran. So thank you, Kieran. And Kieran's based in Auckland and across the ditch. So welcome to the Osaka presentation.
Thank you. I'll turn my camera off in a second, but just thank you so much for the invite to come and talk today. And it's great to be here. So I'm really impressed with the numbers that you're getting for this race. It's quite exciting. So yeah, we're really happy to be part of it. I'll just turn my camera off, and I'm going to hopefully be able to do that. I've got it right?
Yep.
All right, so I'm from Predict Wind. We're a New Zealand-based company. I think we've got about 55 working in the company now, and our goal is to make really complex and weather accurate and accessible to anyone, anywhere. There's multiple ways that you can get our weather forecasts. You can get it on computers, iPads, iPhones, Android devices. When you're on land, you can get it through the internet, and when you're at sea, you can get it through satellite communication or Starlink or your old Iridium sat phones or SSB, or yeah, there's plenty of ways, email request. So we cover everything. Today I've been asked to sort of present 3 options for you, and these are by no means what you have to take, but they're just possibilities. And I've put together these for you in sort of 3 packages. One's cost conscious, one's sort of middle of the road, and then one's the gold star, or as Simon put it, the Rolls Royce package. So package 1 is so these are Iridium satellite communications that we're talking about. So on your boat, you need to have 2 forms of satellite communication as per the notice of race. And so you've got a few options. Predict Wind, we sell the Iridium product, and there's the Iridium Go, which has been around for about probably 7 or 8 years now. And then last year they brought out a new Iridium Go Exec. So this first cost-conscious package talks about the Iridium Go unit. So what I've done here is I've put together a package with 2 satellite devices. One is the Iridium Go with the antenna, so you can have the device mounted downstairs in the boat and have the external antenna mounted outside so it gets a good satellite communication. Because you need 2 devices, I've also added another one, and these are interchangeable onto that external antenna. Multiple SIM cards, the reason is because each device needs to have its own SIM card, and each device will have its own airtime plan. So if one goes down, the other one can just take over. What you would do is I've given 4 SIM cards because you would use it for the race, and then you end up in Osaka. Who knows what's going to happen? Are you going to stay there for a while? You deactivate it so you don't pay the monthly fee, and then you bring it back again. You'd start up a new SIM card. Each device would have some separate batteries. So the Iridium Go has interchangeable batteries. We sell Iridium Go airtime plans. They are month-by-month contracts, and that plan connects your Iridium Go device to the satellites so that you can download weather from any supplier. You can make SMS phone calls. You can make voice calls. So you can send SMS messages and make voice calls. And so that's a monthly plan of $154.95 US per month. And then on top of that, you need a second plan for the other device. And that's just a very basic plan, $69.95. It just sits there and ticks over per month. And then on top of that, you need to have a subscription to Predict Wind to be able to access our weather forecasting and our weather routing service. And you should have the professional level of Predict Wind because you can get all of the routing. We use your boat polars. You can get all of the ocean data into every single route that you request. And so I put a price for these 2 airtime plans at 6 months of airtime. Now that might seem a bit excessive, but you really need to practice with the device before you go. So you activate a month or so beforehand, you do it for the race, and then quite often, depending on where you are in the calendar month, it may roll over for another month. So worst case scenario, $3,800 US for that whole package. That will give you everything you need for weather and to be able to communicate with the race committee via SMS, via phone calls, email, and download all the weather. So that's package 1. So I'll just go on to the next package. Oh, sorry. Okay, so this was a breakdown of everything. So the antenna, so I've broken down all of these costs. And like I said, we sell these individually on the website, so you don't have to take all of this, but this was just an overview, so you get an idea of general cost of what it's going to cost you. So package 2 is the mid-range package. Now this includes the new Iridium Go Exec device, which is much faster. So Paul asked me earlier what the difference is between the Go and the Go Exec. On the Iridium Go, to get all of the weather that you need to download to get accurate forecasting and a weather route every 12 hours, it would take you on the Iridium Go about sort of 20 minutes to download all of that data. And so what you do, it's not a problem. You set up, you use the Predict Wind offshore app, you tell it exactly what you want to download, you push download all, you go and check the sails, make a coffee, check the boat, come back, and 20 minutes later the weather has been downloaded onto your device. The Exec would take about 2 to 3 minutes to download that same information. So big difference in data speed is what we're talking about there. So package 2 is mid-range. It comes with the Iridium Go Exec, which is a bigger device here, and the external antenna specifically for this Exec device. And then on top of that, you have an Iridium Go as your backup. And so you can message from this if needs be. You've got the SIM cards, the airtime plans again. I'll just skip to the next screen. Bear with me here. This gives you the breakdown again. So this one comes to 4,955. So quite a big jump, almost $1,000 or more. The reason is that you're getting the exec, which has the faster download speeds, quicker to download everything. Now with the exec, it is a data device, and so you can also get things like WhatsApp, and messaging through WhatsApp is what the race committee is going to be looking at allowing, I've heard. So this would be the device that you would need to do WhatsApp. The Iridium Go does not allow that. So on this device, you can get everything you need. I've also put in here the data hub from PredictWind. This is a new bit of device kit that we've got, and it's designed to work well with Starlink and with the Iridium Go exec, and it does some pretty cool things. So it's predominantly a GPS tracking device, but it also has the ability to help you create your boat polars. And for you that are racing, this could be really interesting to you. Your boat polar is, you know, what your boat will do speed-wise in given conditions, so that the weather routing algorithm knows where to place you and how fast you will go in any given condition. And we have a lot of base polars in our system, for example, a TP52 or anything like that. And but the data hub can actually build a polar profile for your specific boat. It's very clever, and I will share some links later with the team that they can pass on to you, but highly recommend this data hub. The other thing the data hub can do is it can download for you through your exec. We call it over the horizon AIS, and it gives you the ability to see up to 300 miles of AIS boats around you. So instead of only getting warning of a container ship, you know, being on you within 10 or 15 minutes, you've actually got hours, and you can see all of that on your chart plotters and on your offshore app. So this data hub is pretty new, and it's going really well. We're selling hundreds of them at a time. People love them. So send us information. If you want more information on that, just let us know. So this package 2, the Iridium Go exec, the Iridium Go, some batteries, again, the airtime plans, and the PredictWind weather forecasting subscription. To send and receive emails on the exec, you also have to have a Predict Mail service, which is another additional cost. And then I've gone to the Gold Star package, which is essentially 2 Iridium Go execs. Now that has one with the antenna and one to be able to take on into your grab bag if needed. So the extra cost there really is just the second exec unit instead of just the Iridium Go. So that's 5,685. And again, here's the breakdown of everything here. So the Iridium Go complete pack comes with the exec unit, the data hub, the antenna, and all the cables, 1,999. A second Iridium Go exec, 1,599. SIM cards, and then the airtime plan for the exec, $169.95 per month US. And then the second one can be on the smaller just backup device price, which is a 5 megabyte plan for $69.95. The weather subscription, the professional for 1 year, which is on each of those 3 packages, $4.99 for the year. And then again, Predict Mail, so 5,685, something like that. Can't quite read it. So those are the 3 packages. I can happily take questions on those and the benefits of them versus Starlink and things later. That's no problem. I thought we'll just move on quickly to why use PredictWind for your weather forecasting. So we have the best global models in the world, and we have 6 of those models. ECMWF from Europe is rated the #1 model in the world. Spire is quite a new model that's come out, and they have a new way of forecasting through radio occultation, and I can send you information on that, or the support team can. UKMO is the UK model, also rated extremely well. The GFS is the USA NOAA model, so that's very well known, and it's free on a lot of websites. And then we have our own PWG and PWE models. And so those are our proprietary models. A lot of people ask what's the difference between these two. We have our predict wind model, and to get the PWE forecast, we take the ECMWF initial conditions every 12 hours. We buy them from ECMWF, and the initial conditions is what's happening right now in the world from satellites, from boats, from planes, from buoys in the ocean. Those are all put into our model from ECMWF, and we generate the PWE model. We do the same with GFS. We grab the GFS initial conditions, we put it into our predict wind model, and it generates the PWG forecast model out to 10 days. So a lot of people ask about that, and I hope that's explained some of it. We'll just move on to, we've got a new product that we've just released lately with Predict Current, and this is high resolution tidal currents for most coastal areas of the world. It's amazing. And so there's different resolutions. And so, you know, in most areas, especially around Melbourne and around Osaka, we have 100 metre resolution, 400 and 400 metre and 4K. And what that means is the higher the resolution, the more accurate the data. So you can see really amazing tidal flows around, you know, headlands and things. So that's all part of that package that I put into those 3 packages before. The professional level gives you all of this access, and it's used in the router. So every route that you run, if your route runs through a 100 metre, 400 or 4K area, the route will be generated using this data. And then when it's away from the coast, the route will then switch to ocean current of your choice, of which we have 3, HICOM, Mercator and RTOFS. So that was just a little info on currents, and I just took a couple of screenshots here. So this is the ocean current, Mercator. So this is a screenshot from one of our website platforms. You can see Japan here and all of these currents coming up along the coast of Japan. So it's pretty important to know what's going on here. So that's, and then I took another screenshot of the high resolution currents, and so you can see the tidal streams coming through here. So this is Osaka, and you know, coming into the bay, there's some quite significant currents and eddies that you really want to be able to take advantage of or avoid. Now, this is what I was talking about with over the horizon AIS. So for this, you need to have a data hub. But what it means essentially is that your range grows from, you know, anywhere from 4 to 20 miles with normal AIS out to 300. And so we can pick up all of these satellite AIS and then send them down to your boat into the data hub. And then the data hub can transfer them out to any of your chart plotters so that you can see them and, you know, have a really good heads up of what's coming. So very, very important. I did have a screen recording, but I'm not sure it's been put in there, Simon. Do you know whether that got put in or not?
I don't. I think I forgot to put that one in. Sorry.
That's all right. So yeah, that screen recording was a few minutes of just how to use the offshore app and the grids that you could download, and a little bit about the weather routing. Perhaps Simon can share that with all of the participants afterwards.
Yes, I will. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be good to watch. So yeah, I'm happy to go back. I know there's probably going to be some questions about Starlink versus Iridium or your old Iridium products and what will still work. So yeah, happy to take some questions.
Okay, yeah, thanks very much, Karen. I've got a question here from about how far ahead does the current forecasting go?
The ocean current or the tidal current forecasts depends on what resolution you're looking at. The 100 metre only goes out, I think it's 36 hours, and then after that it extends out to 10 days. So yeah, so when you're running a route, you want to be practicing now so that you understand it all, but in the future your routes will be too far. How do you explain it? We run out 10 days of forecast models. Your routes your race is going to take longer than that. So to complete any route, when you're looking in our system, we use the ECMWF ensemble model to complete any route. So the first 10 days will be very accurate with all the forecast data, and then it moves to this ensemble model, which helps us calculate it and finish a route. But it's sort of the ensemble picks up the trade winds and things, but it is what it is. It's not a
okay. I've got a question. You've got the packages have got 2 units, whether it's the Go or the Exec.
Yeah.
So the idea there is to have one as a standby, and I assume they will need a SIM card in them as well. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, exactly. Because you need to have, well, my understanding of the rule is that you need to have 2 working devices. So you'd have one device as your primary with the data plan that has enough for you to be able to download all of your weather every 24 hours, every 12 hours, every time the new forecast updates, you want to be re-downloading. So you'd have one device on that higher plan, and then one device on the lower cost plan that's just sitting there ticking away as a safety backup that can be used if needed.
Okay. Is there any more questions? Can you please put them in the chat, and we'll address them, please. Any more questions?
One thing I'd just say is, we've got a really big support team. We only hire sailors, so all of the people that you'll be coming into, if you ask any questions, will be people that have also done the Whitbread. I tend to have hired a lot of my friends that I've sailed with, so it's quite handy. But so you get really good advice, and because we're all sailors, we're not there to trick you or make you buy something that you don't need. We understand what you're going to be going through and how it will really work for you. And we've got lots of online tutorials, how to set things up. If you're not that tech savvy, you can set up an onboarding session, which is a paid service, and we'll talk you through everything on the phone or on a Google Meet or whatever, and get you all set up really quickly. But definitely utilise our support team, and just come into support@predictwind.com with any questions from today, and I'm more than happy to help.
Excellent. So I've got another question here. Does the Gold Star package give you any major advantage over the mid-range packages? I guess the only difference is the spare unit is an actual exec unit, isn't it?
Yeah. In fact, I think the mid-range package is a great one, because you take advantage of the exec with the high data speed, so you can get your weather forecast really quickly. But the Iridium Go, you can SMS message from it, which you can't do with the exec. You can WhatsApp with the exec. I guess it's just, it's learning the systems, and each device has its own app that you use on your phone as the handset. So the disadvantages would be that you have to use the Iridium Go exec app to use that device, and the Iridium Go app to use the Iridium Go device. So it gets a little bit complicated.
So there's another question here about from Neville Rose about can the Go be used with the exec antenna?
No, definitely not. And that's not our choice. We tried to get Iridium to allow that, but because of the different device data speeds and things, Iridium have specified this Iridium Go exec antenna, and they've actually made it really hard to try and use it, even if you could, by making the connectors that go from the device to the antenna, the black LMR 400 cable, different, and you can't buy them anywhere. So they're sort of going down that Apple model of making things just for their devices.
And so if you were going to use the mid-range package, I assume you'll need the 2 antennas, the one for the Go, one for the exec?
I guess it depends. Like that second unit, the Iridium Go, is just an emergency backup. It will work absolutely fine on the deck of the boat, but it would be a real pain if you got halfway through the race and your exec died for whatever reason and you had to use the Go for the rest of the time. You'd have to have it out on deck. So the answer would be yes, you would need both, the antenna for the exec and for the Go, which would be another reason to have the the Gold Star package.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to run one cable for the antenna, it'll probably run two at the same time for a start. So, I've got another question here from Kevin Curtis. Can we use Starlink and one Predict Wind unit?
I don't believe so, but you'd have to check with race committee on that. The way I read the notice of race is it has to have 2 satellite devices, and Starlink's not considered one. I know it's satellite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, because the device has to be able to use text messaging and voice.
Yeah.
So that. Okay, I've got another one from Andrew Rutherford. Are routing plans with rules of race private forecast? Are routing plans? So I'm pretty much could answer that one. So the routing is like Expedition and Predict Wind are routing tools. So they're publicly available for anyone to purchase and buy. So you can use those within the rules.
Yeah, there's some debate around cloud-based routing and whether the human input aspect to it. Different yacht races have different ideas on that. I actually didn't check the rules, but it sounds like Predict Wind is allowed for this race. And yeah, it's all done computer generated, cloud-based. There is no human input from external sources. It's basically what you request from the boat, and you are the only person on the boat that can modify your polars at the time to change anything. Yeah.
And so probably the other thing that's probably a note, because I've had experience with the Iridium Go, is you'll need like an old iPhone to interface for the voice and text messages that connects to the unit.
Correct. For the Iridium Go, you need a phone, and the phone, like a mobile phone, iPhone or Android, and it connects to the Iridium Go through Wi-Fi, and that becomes your handset, essentially. So you use the iPhone to send and receive messages and to make phone calls using what's called the Iridium Go app. So it's an app that you download from the App Store, and then you just use that. And once you get the hang of it, it's really easy. The good thing about the exec is you can make phone calls directly from the unit without needing a phone. And we've tested that a lot, and it's good. So, if you did, for whatever reason, need to jump into a life raft, you can make phone calls directly from the unit, just holding it, which is a nice feature.
Okay, thanks very much, Karen. Look, I think our time's up, and look, we really appreciate your coming on board with us and presenting this presentation. And I'm sure everyone would appreciate, and they're well educated on Iridium Go and the Predict Wind packages. So I guess you're available via the website with the queries, and there'll be contact details on there.
Yep, just anyone's email support@predictwind.com and you'll get through. You can put attention Kieran or say part of the Melbourne Osaka, and I can get through to me, and if I'm not there, one of my team. So yeah.
Okay.
Happy to have any questions at all.
Okay, so thanks very much.
Cool. All right, I'm going to leave now so you can take back over. All the best.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we're on to the next one. So we've got the next presentation is by Martin, and so Martin's a past competitor. He's a ORCV race director and trainer and past Commodore. So I'll hand over to you, Martin, to start the presentation.
Thanks, Paul. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. I've got animations on the slides, and I'm hoping they're going to work. Look, I've been asked to talk about diesel engines, and I guess the reason I'm asked is I'm a bit of a petrol head. I've been involved with cars all my life, petrol sort of muscle cars. More recently, I've been four-wheel driving and hence getting more and more involved with diesel engines. And so when you get your head around a diesel engine, you can get your head around a boat engine, because a boat engine is just a diesel engine. So people who are mechanically minded will probably follow along pretty well. I'm pitching this to people that are not. So I'm going to try and explain it in a way that can make it something complex as simple as possible. And I guess number one is about a marine engine. They are different to a car engine. The big difference is the cooling system, and we'll talk a bit more about that. A diesel engine is different to a petrol engine. So if you didn't already know about diesel engines, particularly a boat motor, they're pretty simple things. Not so much the computer controlled ones, and I'll talk a bit more about that, but they're fairly basic. And the reason we have them in boats is because we don't want petrol. petrol's a volatile fuel. Also, they're simpler. They don't have the electrical systems, the spark plugs, the distributors, the leads, all that stuff. So the way I'm going to talk about this is in terms of systems. I'm a bit of an engineer, so I think in terms of systems. Then we're going to talk about troubleshooting, and we'll also talk about tools and spares and things. Whatever applies to a diesel engine also applies to a genset, particularly if they're diesel. So if you've got a genset on board. So got my little picture of an engine. Don't get too stressed if you can't see the detail. But what I'm going to try and talk about is the first of the systems, fuel. If an engine doesn't start, doesn't run, or stops, it's probably fuel related. So fuel is the number one thing to think about on an engine. And when I talk about the fuel system, I don't even start with the engine. I'm going to start at the back of the boat, your fuel tank. That is the first part of the system and the first component that can possibly give you grief. I'm going to talk about each of these items, and then I'm going to talk about what could go wrong. Fuel tank, you could get contaminated fuel, you can get leaks, you can get cracks, you can get all that sort of stuff. That's why special regs, we want to separate the fuel tanks into sort of two. Fuel goes through the fuel lines, maybe via a manifold or something to switch between the two fuel tanks. Goes through a pre-filter, goes through some sort of lift pump or something that sucks it initially up to get to the engine. And that word suck is pretty important because it's all based on vacuum. So the thing that'll kill a fuel system is a leak. And not so much a leak of fuel, but a leak of air. I remember coming back from, I don't know, Devonport a couple of years ago, and one of the boats really struggled. Now, by the time they got back to Melbourne, the reason they struggled was a single loose hose clamp. And what happened is the sucking motion, the pumps that are trying to suck the fuel, they'll take the easiest thing they can find. So if they choose between fuel and air, they'll suck air anytime. So that boat, its main problem was it's sucking air through just one loose hose clamp. And it kept stopping, and they kept bleeding it, and it kept stopping, and it kept bleeding it. So you're going through another pre-filter. This second filter might even be part of the lift pump. Some people have the kind of the physically hand pump things. Other boats have 12-volt lift pumps. And finally, it gets to the injector pump. Now, injector pumps are mechanically driven machines that hang off the side of the engine. And in old school diesels, they'll progressively pump fuel to each of the injectors, each of the cylinders. And in modern common rails, they'll pressurize a fuel line, and then they'll have electronic injectors. The engine goes, you know, suck, bang, pop, compressors, exhausts, like all engines do. And then the excess fuel returns to the fuel tank. So you've got a return line as well. So most diesel systems are pretty well simple like that. And if they go wrong, and they do go wrong, it's going to be one of these things. A diesel engine doesn't have an electrical system. It basically compresses the fuel with a bit of heat. It'll just ignite and go bang. It doesn't have a spark plug. It doesn't have anything like that. So compression and fuel, your engine will run. So if I took the fuel tank, it's either going to be blocked, contaminated, or perhaps it's empty. I know a competitor just recently actually had issues with that. Through fuel lines, sucking air. So I bought an old XU1 Tirana, couldn't get it running, changed the fuel pump, changed all sorts of things. What it ended up being is one rubber fuel line going from the fuel tank to the pipes, the steel pipes. It just had these tiny little cracks in it. So old fuel hoses on your boat, one of the preventative maintenance things, just swap out all your fuel lines, put brand new hoses in, and you don't have to worry about it. Very rare they actually get blocked, although filters get blocked. Some fuel tanks have a little strainer in them. They might get blocked. Pump sucks it up. You could have a faulty lift pump, pretty rare, but possible. You could have blocked filters within the water separating filters or anything like that. So it's all about blockages. It's all about air leaks is where a lot of this stuff will go wrong. Until you get to the engine, and I'll talk a bit more about the computer controlled engines. I've got an interest in a cruising yacht, a big old yacht. We just stuck a brand new common rail diesel engine out of a Yanmar. Now, anyone who knows modern four drives and modern diesels, and you get the engine light on and they get this concept of limp mode, because the computer goes, oh, this one sensor doesn't work, therefore I better degrade the engine. So the moment you started introducing computers and sensors and things like that, you have a world of pain. So those computer control injector pumps have issues. Other than that, it's just blockage. So that's fuel. Fuel will stop your engine. One of the things with fuel, you do need to learn how to bleed an engine, because if there's a blockage or a problem and you fix it, you've then got to get all that fuel through the lines and get all the air out of the lines. And that's the concept of bleeding. If you don't know how to bleed an engine, go look at some YouTubes, go read some books, go to a diesel course, suss out how to do it. I had to bleed a Yanmar in our credentials, an old Cav 35, and I knew the drill, but I didn't know there's this one little bleeder that was hidden behind something else that I didn't see for ages, and that was stopped me bleeding it. The last thing to note is the common road diesels, the modern computer-controlled diesels, they run at a much, much higher fuel pressure, and because of that, they are very, very sensitive to contaminated fuel. So, and as we know on boats, sometimes we have issues with fuel and the cleanliness of fuel. All right, so fuel. We will take questions at the end, but jump in with the text-based questions. I do actually have the screen open so I can keep an eye on them. I'm going to talk about cooling now. Now I've deliberately split cooling into two. We've got two sides of a cooling system. We've got the raw water or the seawater side, and then we've got the coolant side, the natural coolant part of an engine. This side first, the raw water, this is where we see the seawater getting sucked in. It comes through a strainer. In our prep, Paul and I on Catabara 8, we put a brand new motor in. We were all excited. We went to motor across to Sandringham and the motor died. And in the 2 months that have been sitting at Royals, all these little mollusks and mussels and things started growing in the intake of the engine. It was unbelievable. And we had to actually blow it out and go into Brighton and blow it out because we got the seawater intake got blocked. Nothing wrong with the motor, brand new motor, but the seawater intake. There's a little pump and it's driven by a little belt typically. And we talk about impellers. We should always take an impeller. Impeller's the little rubber bit that sits inside the pump, but it's a mechanical pump and it just pumps seawater, very low pressure, doesn't run at very high pressure at all. And what it does, it pumps it through a heat exchanger, a boat's equivalent of the radiator. So in a car, you've got coolant running through one side of a radiator and you've got air flowing through the other. We don't have air on a boat, but we have cold water being the seawater. It then just discharges through the exhaust and we see that spit out when the engine runs, it goes blub, blub, blub. And that's the thing we're looking for. If we're setting water in the exhaust, happy days. No water in the exhaust and just smoke or something, not so happy days. So if we go, what's going to go wrong with a seawater system? The inlet could be blocked, could be closed, or maybe the stopcock's broken or something's going wrong. Again, it could be sucking air. Maybe you've got loose pipes or cracked hoses. It'll suck air, it's not going to suck water. The actual pump itself, they're fairly basic things. You just undo the cover, assuming you got all the spanners that fit, take the belt off, and you just change the impeller. Osaka, you'll be carrying quite a few impellers, just in case, because some of the water is not that clean. So I should have actually said these water systems, they often suck the water through a strainer. In other words, a little plastic kind of colander thing that just catches all the gunk and the seaweed and stuff like that. One of the things you keep an eye on when you're out there. Obviously, the rubber seal on the strainer has to be really good, otherwise it'll suck air, not water. Blockages, damaged impellers. If you have a blocked heat exchanger, you're in a bit of strife out there. There's a lot of merit in getting your engine serviced and checking your heat exchangers. As Paul gave me a tip, as some of the Yanmars, you really need to change the seals every couple of years on those. But make sure that that side of the engine system is good, because on the other side of the engine system, cooling system, you've got the natural coolant. This is very much like a car, not a lot of difference at all. You've got a coolant reservoir. In this case, it's a heat exchanger. Could be a radiator. The coolant, by the way, you have the green coolant or whatever color you're using mixed to a certain ratio. Make sure that coolant's fairly fresh. Once they get to about 3 or 4 years old, they start becoming tainted. And for the sake of $20, $30, just change your coolant before the race. Make sure it's nice and clean and it's working well. It goes through a belt-driven water pump, which is generally integrated into the engine block. So on the front, it's sort of bolted on. could be something you take as a spare if you're starting to change water pumps at sea. You've got some issues. It then pumps through the inside of the engine, the coolant galleries of the engine, up and around the cylinders. Goes in one end, comes out the other. Goes in cool, comes out hot. Goes via a thermostat, which is a thing that opens and closes and stops the coolant getting through to help your engine warm up. Once it's warm, it opens and all the coolant can flow. They can actually block. Worst case scenario, you can take them out. And then it goes back to the coolant reservoir. People with a hot water service runs off the engine, you're going to have coolant lines running to and from that hot water service, which is lovely for hot water showers, but it adds another dimension to what could go wrong and where pipes can go wrong. If you're getting leaks in those things, you might have to bypass your hot water and do away with hot water service. So if I look at what could go wrong, we're talking about coolant that you lose the coolant, it's empty. You haven't checked it for ages and it's just low on coolant. If you're low on coolant, it's got to go somewhere. Hopefully it's a leak. And why I say hopefully, because if it's not a leak, it's going somewhere and it's probably going in the combustion chambers of your engine. And that could be really, really bad. The water pump could be broken or leaking. They do have a habit of leaking, particularly around the bearings. There could be damaged hoses. There could be problems with the fan belt. They talk about a fan belt in a car because it runs a fan. We still call them fan belts, but it's really the alternator belt. They're generally one belt that runs the water pump and the alternator through a single belt off the crank pulley. Those belts I'll talk about later. Goes to the cooling galleries, which could be locked. Thermostat could be blocked. You could have leakages, blockages, that sort of thing. So we're starting to think about spares as we're talking, aren't we? Hoses, clamps, things like that. The last system I want to talk about is your electrical system. Now on that diagram there's a pretty basic electrical system. You've got a starter motor, which is going to be connected to your battery. It's also going to be connected to your alternator, which is what's generating electricity and charging things up. A lot of boats have a start-stop relay, which stops the engine. It decompresses it and stops the engine. That's an electrical device, and that can play up. You also got glow plugs, and they're little heaters. What a glow plug does in cold temperatures, it warms the cylinders so that the car will start, so the boat will start. You guys are going to the tropics, so that shouldn't be an issue there. Then you've probably got a few sensors like a temperature sensor or something like that. That measures the temperature of the coolant, not the seawater. And you'll have an oil pressure sender. If your oil light comes on, that's really bad. It doesn't mean you're low oil. It means you have no oil pressure and you're grinding away your bearings of your engine. So yeah, we never ever want to see a low oil pressure light. Then you would have to overlay all that for a modern common rail diesel where you're going to have a whole complicated wiring loom. You're going to have sensors for your crank angles and your cam angles and things like that, airflow, fuel flow. There's all these sensors that pick up things and they talk to the computer. Then the computer will spit out a signal to the injector pump and tell it what to do. So lots of computer-driven grief. What can go wrong is generally broken wires, broken plugs, poor crimping, corrosion, loose fittings. More often than not, it's that, as opposed to the actual device breaking. You know, starter motor could theoretically break. They do play up a bit, particularly the solenoids. Alternators could theoretically play up. It's often, though, the wiring issues. Sometimes it's trigger alarm related, so there might be an alarm which will trigger an engine cutoff. So it's protecting itself effectively. Sometimes engines will have overrides, so you'd have a look at your own book for that. Then you got the computer-driven, oh my God, I can't see a sensor, therefore I'm going to degrade the performance of the engine. They're the scary ones. Oh, I've just got there a little note. A crude way of resetting your engine computer is to disconnect everything and leave it for a couple of minutes. And sometimes it will reset if you're lucky. Then you get all this stuff that sits in and around that. You've got engine controls with keys and switches and things that could possibly go wrong. You've got a gear lever that can bind up if you never grease them. You've got engine control cables that can bind up if you never grease them. You've got fuel tanks and fillers and breathers and engine mounts and all the other stuff that goes with it. You've got through-hole fittings for your intake of water, and you've obviously got an air intake. And so they also need to be maintained. So I talked about troubleshooting. I'm just going to go through a list of common issues. So if your engine won't charge the batteries, and you see the diagrams there's got a little multimeter, basically a device you can measure voltage. So you whack your voltage meter over the output of the alternator and onto ground. And if that thing is measuring 12 volts-ish, then you're not charging. It should be measuring like 13, 14 volts. So if you measure it, then you start your engine, you should see an increase in that voltage. If you've got issues there, you're talking probably connections. You often get corrosion in the connections. You look at the cable and it looks fantastic, but it's actually not. So maybe a set of jumper leads or something so you can bypass a cable when you're testing and trying to problem solve. Could be belt tension. You know, if your alternator belt's too loose, probably not, but it could be. Or the battery cables, battery switches, things like that. It's generally, it could be the actual alternator. You never know. Also, alternators need an exciter circuit. In other words, a little circuit to say, hey, you better charge. So they've got little wires that go to them as well. And could be one of those. If your engine won't crank, in other words, you turn the key and it doesn't go and try and start, then it's probably starter motor related or electrical. Starter motors are funny things. They kind of, you can give them a bash on the side, particularly on the solenoid with a shifter. Believe it or not, sometimes those solenoids stick. The other thing you do is bypass the little wire that actually starts and just with a screwdriver, which will give you a hell of a sparks and things, you can arc across the two terminals on the back of the starter motor. And if it kicks over, then you know it's an electrical issue. Again, you can put multimeters on, test for voltage, turn the key, see if the voltage changes. Yeah, lots of things there. A slow crank, most likely a flat battery. In other words, you turn the key and it goes really slowly. It means your voltage is low. Your voltage is either going to be low because you've got some problem with your cable connections or you got some problem with your batteries. Again, multimeters. Shouldn't drop voltage too much when you're cranking. It could be a fried battery, you never know. You do want the ability to have a bridging of your house batteries, so you could use your house batteries to start your engine in worst case scenario. You might even want a little jump pack or something. Again, that set of jumper leads, if you need it, just to sort of bridge things and bypass things and trying to troubleshoot. And just my note about battery terminals, they can look good, but they can still not work. I tried to get my son's four-wheel drive going after an engine rebuild. We spent an hour and a half and then realized this beautiful looking battery cable just didn't connect. It looked good, but just didn't connect. If you've got a very flat battery and your engine can barely start and you're running out of options, you can crack off a few injectors, which will reduce the compression of the engine so that it can spin a bit quicker and easier. Crank it over and try and get at least one or two cylinders working and then tighten up the injectors on the other and it'll progressively start, hopefully. If the engine cranks but it just won't start, in other words, it just will not start, it's fuel. Unless it's a computer controlled one, it could be a computer related issue where it's turning a solenoid or something off. You know, if you've got fuel solenoids on your fuel lines, which are electrically controlled, it could be one of those. Could need a glow, but you guys, it's going to be warm. It won't be that. Probably fuel. So you can work through it, looking for vacuums, stuff like that. We often tell people to take a jerry can of 20 litres of diesel, regardless of how big their tanks are. A 20-litre jerry can of diesel means you can rig up with a pipe a gravity-fed system that sits above the engine that bypasses the whole fuel tank's whole fuel system straight to the injector pump, and hopefully you can get some flow going and get the engine at least started and running. Yeah. And also we separate the fuel tanks because you could get contaminated fuel, so you have the ability to go with the others. You're going to take a few fuel filters with you to just to be able to go with change your filters in a hurry. The cruising yacht I was on over Christmas had twin fuel filters, and it had a manifold where you basically turn a tap and it directs the fuel through the other filter. It was really clever. Porter flow, seawater discharge, yeah, impellers, things like that. I think we've covered that. So a couple of tips before we wrap up engines. Get yourself a decent book if you're not into engines, and at least it'll tell you what to do. Considering going to a course, lots of YouTube, things like that. You have to know how to bleed your engine. You have to. When you replace parts, let's say you replace your belts before the race, you know that the old belts fit, don't you? I carried spare belts on my Sydney 36 for 6 years, brand new ones, and then I went to put them on and they didn't fit. I'd never used them. So even though a part's new, the old part definitely fits. If you go and buy parts, try and take the old part with you. On a once a week basis, you'd be doing your rounds of the engine. You'd be checking the oil, the coolant, the raw water strainer, the belt tensions, all that sort of thing. Every time you start the engine, you peer over the back and look for water coming out the exhaust. Engines glaze up when they idle or when they're running without load. Diesels hate it. So if you're in a penny and you're charging your batteries, you whack it in gear. You can't whack it in gear because you're racing. So that's going to be an issue you're going to have to deal with. I had a suggestion from someone saying if you put a T-piece off the raw water pump and a pipe, you've got an effective bilge pump. Yeah, I'd be filtering that pretty heavily though, personally, but it's a good tip. Make sure you get the ability to start the engine. I mentioned this earlier, using paralleling. I would put a separate, at least a voltmeter, ideally a battery monitor on the engine battery, just to keep an eye on that, because we keep an eye on our house batteries, but yeah, you need to keep an eye on the engine battery as well. Heat exchanger seals, I mentioned. Water ingress and sail dryers can be an issue. You get those alarms. Some people fix that by just cutting the alarm wire. If you've got something like that happening before the race, I'd be resolving that well before the race. Two-handers, you need a way to start the engine on deck in case of a man overboard. I've been on plenty of boats where you got to scramble downstairs to turn a key to start an engine. That's not appropriate for a double-hander. If my friend's just fallen overboard, I'm doing my MOB, I don't want to be going downstairs to start something and lose sight of that person in the water. So yeah, look at your boat. If you haven't got a way of starting the engine on deck, yeah, put something in, even just a basic switch or something. Fans and hatches for cooling. We've talked about that. Paul talked about that the other day in his engine thing. So I'm going to take questions on just engines, and I've got a little bit on tools and spares. I've got the chat in front of me. How do you stop a diesel engine if you push stop button doesn't work? Loss of all power. Yeah, it's a good point. Some engines have a decompression lever. In other words, a lever you pull and it'll reduce the compression so the engine stops. I had this problem with a genset over Christmas actually. And what I did is I literally cracked the injectors so that they started leaking fuel. Sorry, I cracked the intake fuel line just next to the diesel pump, injector pump, and it started sucking air and stopped immediately. And then I tightened that fitting back up again. Undoing injectors will also do it. Next question, you need to add a second jerry to collect the return fuel line if main tank is cracked. Good point. Didn't think about that, Kevin. Well done. Probably if you're running off jerry cans, then you'd probably run the return back to that jerry can. But yeah, think about the return line as well. And does notice race require 2 fuel tanks? That's a Cat 1 question, which I'll flick over to Simon, who's doing Cat 1 soon, and he can answer it later, but I believe the answer is yes, you need split fuel tanks. Jump in, Simon, if I got that wrong.
As far as I know, Martin used to just require one, but I'll check that up.
It's just one. It is one tank per the Cat 1.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
All right. Okie doke. If there's no other questions, I'm going to go into tools and spares. So we've got a URL there. On the training page on the Melbourne to Osaka website under this session, there's a hot link as well. There's a document we've put together. I don't think I've got time to share it now, but tools and spares. And we've just got, we've run around the Brains Trust to go, what would you take as tools and spares on the Osaka? And it's pretty comprehensive. We've got engine related stuff. We've got electrical related stuff. We've got plumbing. We've got repairs to the fiberglass hull. We've got rigging repairs. We've got sail repairs. We've sort of tried to make it as comprehensive as possible. You might look at it and think it's overkill, but if we get you thinking, then we've achieved something. There is a lot there. So we're going to really encourage people to look at it. The tool you'll need is the tool you don't have to have. So it's Murphy's Law. If you take it, you won't need it. But if you don't take it, you probably need it. This just drives you crazy. We do use multimeters an awful lot. Oh, thanks, Simon. Put the link up. Great. We do use multimeters an awful lot. I do not use shifting spanners if I have a spanner. Anyone who uses shifters for bolts and stuff, slap yourself now, or I'll slap you after the race. Shifting spanners is how you round the heads off bolts and you turn a 10-minute job into a 6-hour job, and you swear and you curse at yourself. Do not use a shifter if you've got a decent spanner that fits. I love these tool rolls. I've got one of them on 4-wheel drive. They are magnificent. You put all your tools in it, you roll it up and you whack it in the cupboard. You get it out and you roll it out on the floor, and you don't have to go hunting for stuff. They are just magnificent. You can have them for spanners and sockets and screwdrivers, and they're just sensational. Can't recommend them highly enough. I did Osaka with Paul. Paul had this absolutely brilliant idea. He had this angle grinder for cutting the rig away, and he vacuum sealed it using a cryovac machine. It's like, that's fantastic, because this thing lives, you know, in cupboards and bilges and God knows where else. And you know what tools are like on a boat, they get rusty and stuff. So anything that's prone to rust or, you know, condensation, it was just a sensational idea. Simple, really good idea. My tips, number 1, do not use a shifter, right? Unless there's nothing else that'll fit. Use a correctly fitted ring spanner, or ideally a socket. The spanner you need is the one you're missing. Everyone is missing a 12mm or a 10mm spanner out of their spanner set. So take a couple of the same ones for the common ones. Protect yourself, especially eyes. I got my eyes scraped in the eye and ear hospital once after drilling something. It's not fun. And if you're offshore, you can't even get to a doctor. So eye protection. Take photos. If you don't know how to do something, take photos. And when you pull a part off, you stick it down and you put the next part next to it and the next part next to that, and you have it laid out in the order of disassembly. Bag and label everything if you need to, if they're little tiny little parts, but do not lose. You need a way of having it so you don't lose track of things, because it might be obvious, but then putting it back together. If something's stuck or a bolt won't move, just stop, wait and think. Use some heat. If you've got a little heat gun or a lighter or a blowtorch, heat the bolt and they'll generally come loose. Tight hoses, if you've got to fit a tight hose, warm it up. They'll fit. Stick it in a thing of boiling water. Heat does wonders. WD-40 on nuts and bolts. If you're going to pull something apart, a couple of hours beforehand, give it a squirt with WD-40 and then just leave it and let it soak in. If you're working anywhere near wiring, like the starter or alternator, disconnect that battery, because if you arc, and you can weld your spanner to something, or you can just cause a fire. If you're trying to undo a bolt, rather than just heaving on it, give it a shock load, a bit of a bang or something on the spanner. Shock load is a much easier way of loosening something than just heaving on it. If you're putting something back together, don't use power tools. Hand tighten them with your fingers and get them started before putting a spanner or a socket anywhere near it. Otherwise, you'll cross thread it. And again, your 10-minute job will turn into a 6-hour job. If you do seize or round off a bolt or break it, heat. Vice grips are sensational. Maybe a slide hammer. I don't know. You don't want to go there, really. Broken bolts, again, you don't want to go there. Just horrible things to try and fix at sea. But tools and spares, have a look at that list. Add to your own. Hopefully, it's a comprehensive list. Just think of it in terms of, if I take it, I won't need it. And I'm going to open up to questions or comments.
Martin, one of the things that I have as my favourite thing is that stuck in the engine compartment is the spanner that undoes the bleed nuts, and also stuck in the battery box is a spanner that fits the battery terminals. I find that very good to have those two items stuck there, so you're not searching for it.
They're good tips, excellent tips. On our cruise yacht, we had also an engine compartment light. So switch on the switchboard, click it on, bang, big bright light in the engine compartment so you can see, which was pretty good.
Martin, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ray.
I was going to say, what I used to do is paint each bleed nut a bright paint color.
Oh, great idea. Sensational.
So you can see them.
Well, certainly doing that means you've got to find them all. So you would have got your book out and sussed it out.
Yeah.
Because as I said, this one I had to bleed that day coming in. Anyway, don't get me started. It was our fault for not having enough fuel in the tank.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one bleed nipple we couldn't find. Like I had it all sussed, but just wouldn't bleed. And there's only
Okay,
2 of you. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, sorry.
Thanks, Martin. We're sort of running a bit on short on time here. Thanks very much for your
Okay.
comprehensive lowdown on diesel engines.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just trying to take control here. Someone's taking it off me.
It's
Okay.
not me.
No. Okay, so I'll just move on. So look, we've got a WhatsApp group going. Hopefully everyone can see that slide there with the link for the WhatsApp group. So please join that, all the skippers.
Something wrong there, Paul. We're seeing a troubleshooting slide.
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure.
See, I'm going to take control next. I'll do it and move it on. Right, Paul, you're ready.
Yeah, I've got a problem with the slide in front of me because I'm on page 26 here showing on my screen, so I can't see what's going on. So you're going to have to take over the assignment because I can't see anything.
All right, just to remind everybody, I'm Simon Dryden. We're going to there's that WhatsApp group. So if you haven't joined that, you can scan that code that you can see in front of you. So if you want to make sure that you do that, WhatsApp is a really good way to get help from your fellow competitors. All right, next up, I'd like to introduce Ray Shaw. And Ray Shaw has been around in the sailing community, and he has got a senior job looking after a committee at Australian Sailing. And he's going to talk to you about the most difficult area of boats is stability and hull construction compliance. Welcome, Ray.
Thanks, Simon. So the Osaka race, of course, is a Category 1 or 1+ race, and an important part of meeting the compliance is the boat be stable enough. And at Cat 1, there are only 2 ways that you can meet the stability requirement, and they are by either obtaining what's called an ORCI stability index, and it has to be a number greater than 115, or a STIX number of greater than 35. So I'll explain a little bit about both of those in a minute, but let me make some general comments about stability, I think, on the next slide. Okay, so both of these essentially are mathematical ways of modeling the yacht stability, and they involve inclining the boat a small amount and seeing how the boat responds. And essentially what you're doing is trying to measure how the center of gravity of the boat is positioned relative to the center of buoyancy of the boat. And once you know the shape of the hull, you can then extend that inclination measurement to see how the boat behaves at much higher angles of inclination. So they're mathematical models. Are they perfect? No, but they are the best we have. And both the measures of stability I mentioned, ORCI and the STIX rating, involve this sort of mathematical analysis. Let's talk a little bit about ORCI. And the way that is done is to, again, as I say, incline the boat, and that can be done by the official measures, and that inclination data, together with the typical measurement data for the boat, length, weight, draft, all that sort of stuff, is sent to Australian Sailing. It's important to know the shape of the hull, and through what's called a hull file. And if it's a production boat, they're easily available. And if it's a one-off boat, then it can be difficult. You can measure the actual hull file, measure the hull profile, and produce that file, which is a bit more complicated. But generally, they're available for most boats. So what Australian Sailing do is they use the ORCI hydrodynamic modelling program, and from that they produce a certificate which shows the stability data. I think the next slide shows an example of that. This is what you get when you do the hydrodynamic modeling. So this shows how the boat performs as it's inclined. So the riding up, the force is required to tip the boat through a certain angle, and at some point it will go through 0. In this case, 152 degrees. and so that is the angle of vanishing stability. If you look on the table below, it shows the limit of positive stability of 152, and they add a couple of corrections to that number and produce what's called a stability index, and you see it's 156.5. So this is a very stable boat. Because it obviously has to go through quite a big angle before it has no riding arm. What's also important in this is the area under the positive part of the curve is really much bigger than the area on the negative curve. What that means is for this particular boat, it takes a lot of energy to invert the boat, and not a lot of energy to flip it back up. So what you want is a very high positive curve so that the boat is unlikely to invert, and then a small negative component so that the boat is more easily will right itself. So this is what you get from ORCI, and this is so the number it has to be that number of the stability index ratio, going back if we can, Simon, that stability index number has to be greater than 115. Ideally, well greater than that, but 115 is the magic number. Okay, let's move on to sticks. This is again a different model of stability, and it uses what's called the ISO 12217 standard, and it's quite a complicated standard. So it's not the sort of it requires a naval architect who knows the ins and outs of that standard. It's quite complicated, and again, you need the inclination data and the hull file shape. And what it does with the ISO standard, it calculates it involves calculating a number of aspects of the yacht's hydrodynamic properties. I won't go into the details, but there are a whole bunch of calculations that are done, and then they all get combined in the end to what's called the sticks rating. And that sticks rating for a Category 1 race has to be at least 35. So if you go down this path, you really need a naval architect to do this for you. If you go down the ORCI path, you can do the inclination test, and as long as you've got the hull file, send it off to Australian Sailing and give them a few dollars, and they produce the data for you. Okay, some general comments about both of these stability measurements. Of course, if the yacht is changed in some way, for example, change in a keel, fin, or bulb, or something like that, or any other thing that impacts the stability, then a sticks rating or an ORCI rating would have to be redone. So it has to be obviously. We need to be sure that the rating that's provided is reflective of the current condition of the boat. So, for example, if you did something to change the weight of the boat significantly, then that might have an impact on the stability, and so the ratings have to be current. If some boats might have these ratings that have been determined some years ago, and the question is, are they still appropriate? Well, it again, as long as we can be sure that nothing really has changed in the boat that affects its stability, that might be fine. It becomes difficult when the boat ownership has changed. If it was 2 owners ago who got the stability rating, then you may not know whether things have been done. So the organising authority will have to look at each boat and look at the data that's available and determine does it meet the compliance requirements. So it really is a case-by-case assessment of every boat. Okay. Next slide. Construction. Obviously, this is a big race, and so it's important that the boats be strong enough for the trip to Osaka. So, for a Category 1 race, the design, construction, and maintenance of the yacht has to meet, must be certified to meet one of the applicable standards. It's important to say it's the design, the construction and maintenance of the boat has to meet the standard. Now, what are the standards? Well, it depends on the age of the yacht. So there are different standards that are available, and depending on the age of the yacht, certain standards are available to be met. And it's important to say that if the boat has been modified in any way, or it's been repaired in any way, then the repairs and the modifications have to be done to the original standard. So what are these standards? Okay, so if a boat was launched after 2010 July, there's only one option. It has to meet what's called the ISO standard of 12215, Category A. Category A means certain wind speeds and wave heights. And so the boat has to be certified to the standard by an approved body, a body that's approved by World Sailing. So any production boats that have been built since 2010, they will meet this requirement almost certainly. But that's the requirement for a boat built from 2010 on. It's not only the design of the boat, but it's also the builder must certify that the boat was built to that standard. So and then of course any maintenance after that point has to be, if there's a repair done, if you've had some sort of significant damage to the boat and it's been repaired, the repairer must certify that the repair was done to the original standard. Okay. If the boat is before 2010, there are a number of options. One is the ABS guide for classing offshore boats. That's an American standard for yacht construction. That's one option. There can be the EC Recreational Craft Directive, Category A. That is, the boat can have received the CE mark. And of course, you can still use the ISO 12215 Cat A standard. So those three standards are available for any yacht that was built before 2010. Another option is that if the designer and builder haven't done this sort of certification, then you can go down a path of getting a naval architect who knows these standards to then certify that the boat was designed and built to that compliance. A boat that was launched before 1987 does not actually have to meet these standards, as it turns out. And again, it's important to say that both the design and the build need to comply with the standard. Okay, next one.
That's it, right?
That's it. Okay. Any questions?
We've got some questions here about Peter Downey has asked, how can we check whether the boat complies with ISO 12215?
Well, generally, if it's a production boat, the manufacturer will be able to tell you that, and so I think Peter, in your case, it's a J boat, as I remember. And I'm pretty sure that the boat will have been built to one of these standards, but we'll have to look at it on a case-by-case basis.
It's 2007, so that would be normally, I mean, J boats, the J133 was built in France. I think they're all built over in France, so that'd be the EC standard.
Probably it may meet the 12215, but it probably be the CE mark. Yes, I think we'll have to look at that, but the J boats were all built to these standards, so I don't think there'll be a problem, but we'll have to look at that. And the manufacturer will be able to tell you that.
Yep. I've got another question here from Mike and Robert Bradley about what was the grandfather year that there's no requirements for the proof of hull construction.
I believe it's 1987.
Okay. Any more questions on hull construction and stability? Probably the only thing, Ray, is so if I've got a one-off racing boat that is it's not a production boat. Obviously, the hull fire would be the issue.
Yes.
So how do I achieve the hull fire for the sticks or the ORCV stability calc.
It may be the design. I mean, if it's a reasonably modern boat, most designers these days use computer programs to generate hull files. So it may well be that you can get it from the boat designer. If not, there is a way of of measuring the hull profile, a computer system that's available that can be used to actually measure the hull shape and produce the hull file. So that's
a scanning process, which I've had done on a previous boat. So that will, you'd probably need to get a surveyor, engage a surveyor for that to achieve that hull file. Yes. And there's some information on guides on that from Australian Sailing if you need them for be able to scan your boat.
Yes, so that's hopefully that's unlikely, but because most modern boats have, as I say, the designers are using computer models tools to produce the hull shape. So but if not, then you have to go down the scanning path.
Yep. Okay. Thanks very much, Ray, for your presentation.
Right. No
is there any other questions? We can certainly send an email to us. We've got some contacts there about compliance matters for the Osaka. So I'm moving on. The next presenter is Simon Dryden. So Simon's a past competitor, I think 2 times, and he's our principal race officer and trainer. So I'll hand over to Simon, who's going to do boat and crew compliance.
Thanks, Paul. Welcome, everybody. I just want to talk to you broadly, and just an explanation for all of you is that Paul, who's the sailing captain of the ORCV, and I'm the principal race director. And so we are responsible for making sure that you comply. The other thing that I want to say to you is that under the special regulations, which we're going to get to here, is that I do not have an opportunity to downgrade any of these rules. So if you come to me or Paul or Ray and say, we can't comply with that, we're not physically allowed to do that. So you need to comply. And for a race like this Category 1 and for Osaka, under the Australian Sailing Special Regulations, is you can find this Part 1, which will tell you all of the details that you need to know about what your boat needs to comply. And if I give you a thing, last time we had a competitor from Queensland, he thought he'd replace his lifelines, and he replaced them with plastic coated lifelines, which were against the rules. And as I was not allowed to downgrade that, is that $1,500 that he spent on new lifelines had to be thrown away, and he had to buy new ones. So the most important thing that I want all of you to think about is that if you're doing things and buying things and all of these compliance issues, is make sure that you check that you're allowed to change to what you're changing to. The other thing about when we had talks on sat phones and things, and Karen said that you need to have them a bit beforehand so you know them can work, is please don't have the situation where last time I spent hours at Sandringham trying to make people's sat phone work at the last moment. So if you're going to buy something, you don't need to buy it now, but at least give yourself a month or more so you can make sure that all of these things that you have work. All right, if we look at crew compliance, and so one of the big areas that we will look at in your crew compliance is your crew experience. And now, as there are only 2 of you, you are co-skippers in effect, and those co-skippers mean that we want to see you and your crew in control of the boat in some significant Cat 1 or Cat 2 events. So for us in Melbourne, we would expect you to do the Melbourne to Devonport two-handed, and we would expect you to do the Melbourne to Hobart two-handed, so that we can actually make sure that you have that experience. Sea Safety Survival course, both of you have to have that, so there's no excuses around that. The ORCV has a course this weekend. It has another course in September, another course in November, and another course in February. I'd try and keep your month of February empty because it's going to be very busy in your dealings with getting yourself ready. Senior First Aid, there's lots and lots and lots of providers who do it. And we will also be providing you with dental stitching and injecting course just before the race. Most importantly for all of you is you need to go and talk to your local physician and your local dentist and make sure that you personally are in tip-top condition before you go. Particularly things like dental checks, get them to have a look at your fillings and all of those things to make sure, say, I'm going on a boat and you don't want to have toothache in the middle of the ocean and not know that. But with our dental course, we do show you some ways of solving that, but please make sure you do your personal checks. The other thing that's quite was something that you have to think about is both of you need radio licenses. So they're available from lots of clubs around Australia, and there's also lots of other private providers who can give you that. So that's basically all of the things, and I want you to think basically from my point of view, if you don't have any of those things there, you're not going to go. Okay, if we look boat compliance, and this is quite a complicated area, and one of the things that Ray didn't tell you, but getting stability and construction standards can be difficult because you might be searching for designers to find hull files, you might be looking for construction certificates, you might have boat builders who are no longer there, and there's all sorts of problems around it. So this is something you really want to make sure that by October this year, you ticked off and you've ticked that area of stability and construction standards, because it is very difficult to get and it's a showstopper. All right, under the notice of race, you'll see that we have a forward bulkhead, and that's written down what you need to comply with that. Lots of boats that have anchor wells, it'll do for that compliant, but it's not a difficult thing to fit to your boat crash bulkhead. And then there's lots of talk around this aft bulkhead, and basically what the organising authority is trying to do here is we want to have a situation if your rudder falls out of your boat or there is some damage to that area of the boat and water ingress is a problem. This bulkhead is designed to help you stem the flow of water to the boat so you can manage the flow before the boat sinks. So that's the reason that this aft bulkhead, it's not a complicated thing. You can get a composite bit of paneling. You can basically glue it on with Sikaflex of the right sort with some right props. So it's not a complicated requirement and quite simple to fix that you can then take out of your boat at the end of the race. Having stern tubes or having rudder tubes and things is not so effective, because if the rudder falls out of the top spindle and it moves around, the rudder tube will break. Okay, notice of race requirements is that if you look at your VHF radio, if it doesn't have DSE and it doesn't have its own MMSI and plus a GPS import, then you need to replace that. So it's very important that you have a look at that. You can now buy very modern radios that have the GPS in them. They have the facilities to do everything, and you can even get them that they do AIS as well. Again, from the notice of race, it's 2 satellite phones. We want one mounted with an external antenna, and we want the second in a waterproof box with a spare battery. So again, this is something that you need to look at, plan for, make your selections. You saw some good selections this evening, and the only thing that might happen is that if you need boat positions, they will be available via WhatsApp or from Blue Water Tracks. So if you want to get them from Blue Water Tracks, you'll need the ability to download a very small little file, and that file can be put in your chart plotter so you can see where you are. The next difficulty that you have is that you need to have your primary chart plotter with E&C charts. So that's something that you need to explore now and find out what you need to do with that. Your Cat 1 first aid kit is going to be the standard first aid kit for Cat 1 events, but because we're looking at a $25 to $35 per day trip, there will be some additions that will be published in November. So you need to put in your project plan that you'll have these additions to your medical kit, and you need to do that. The next thing that you need to look at is your life raft. You might have a life raft that's just a normal 24-hour life raft, and we're asking you for the Osaka race is that you have a greater than 24-hour life raft. For those of you who don't know, that's usually to do with what's packed in your life raft. So if you're getting serviced, you can tell them to just add the bits to that. The next step we've got down there is the Australian Ships Register from AMSA. Lots and lots of people have said this is an easy process, but I can tell you there are lots and lots and lots and lots of people who've had this be a 3 or 4 month process to get their ship registered. The problem is if you don't have your boat on the Australian Ships Register, the Customs and Immigration will not let you leave. There is a requirement for a qualifying passage, so that's something that you need to schedule in. And if you do the Melbourne Hobart, for example, you will resolve that qualifying passage. There's also an insurance to resolve. So we're not looking that you have boat insurance to replace your boat, but it's all about the third party and if something goes wrong. So have a look at those insurances. George and other people are trying to negotiate with various people, and we'll have more to say about insurance at a later stage. The other thing, if it has slipped your notice, is we are compulsory requiring that everybody has an AIS personal overboard beacon. It's strongly recommend that you have an alarm module connected to your chart plotter. And by alarm module is that you, rather than having something that goes beep, 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 it sounds like the local fire brigade going down the road with their sirens pouring. So if your mate is sleeping at that time, or your buddy or your co-skipper, is that squawking alarm, if you go over the side, will wake them up. And we'd really like to see that, I would like to see from all competitors, is that you have this AIS personal device fitted to your life jacket so that if you go over the side, it automatically goes off and you can use that. There are now products that have come to the Australian market. If you're looking at new stuff, is that you can get a combination AIS and PLB unit in one nowadays. So you could look at that. The price of those are coming down. And last I saw them for about $650 each. So you can have that combination device, or you can have the two separate components if you've already got a PLB that works. Keel and rudder inspections. I'm not sure that all of you know about this. This is a fairly new requirement in the last couple of years. And this is something that you need to plan for when your boat's out of the water and getting painted. You just need a little local shipwright to go and have a look at your rudder and keel and tell you that they are at a good standard and there's no problem. Particularly, I would look at if you are doing this from a good maintenance point of view, is before going to Osaka, you want to have your rudder out, you want to check your bearings, you want to check all those compliant issues, you want to look at your steering, all of those issues. So your keel should be right, but it's about making sure that your rudder is going to make the distance. All right, have we got any questions? Been fairly quick. Any questions in the chat?
Probably, thanks, Simon. There's a question, well, there's something that Rod Smallman put in here about these ENC charts, and Rod's currently working with Chart World about creating a package for the Osaka race entrance. So it's one package for all the CNC charts for the whole racetrack.
All right, that's fantastic. And just a little comment that you saw from Martin, that we have auditors around Australia, and we're expecting you to have an audit done by a national safety equipment auditor.
Okay,
Simon,
thanks.
Simon, one thing I would add to the VHF radio situation is that boats should really make sure their VHF radios work well. It's amazing how many people think their radios work well, but they really aren't in great shape. The water gets into the connectors, the cables, and what have you, and the performance goes downhill very quickly. So you really need to check, make sure those connectors and cables are all in great shape, so the VHF radio is as best as it can be.
Yeah, and for any of you who are in Melbourne, Ray's got some good technology, and if you're not, if you don't know how it's working, Ray can come down with his little tester, and he can tell you where the issue might be.
Thanks,
so
Simon. And
I've just
thanks,
got a
Ray.
couple of questions. No, you don't need a Yachtmaster or equivalent. That's not a requirement for this race. And for Peter Dowdney, yes, Sydney Hobart is suitable as a qualifier.
Okay, thanks, Simon. We'll move on. So thank you very much for your presentation. Again, any queries after this presentation, please email it to us and we'll respond. Moving on, we've got a Ronstand sponsors of the race, and they're giving each competitor a clear start dress watch specifically for the Osaka race. Okay, orders for any additional ones. These are ideal gifts for your supporters and key personnel, so they can be directly ordered from Ronstand, and there's a link there shown for the ordering of these additional watches. So thanks very much, Ronstand, for that great watch. So moving on, our next presenter is again a past competitor, Rod Smallman, and he's one of our ORCV trainers, and Rod's going to talk about Watermakers. So welcome, Rod.
Thank you, Paul, or should I say Simon? And welcome everybody. I'm just talking on Watermakers tonight. Not necessarily much technical detail, but really the sort of the benefits and some tips and tricks really. So when we went last time, we took a Watermaker, and having used it on this race, it is highly recommended. It's just so much easier. So the first question I think that you've got to ask yourself is, do you want one? Because it can save a lot of weight and space, or do you think it's just something else that can go wrong? And that really depends on you. But if you decide to take a Watermaker, and then these are a few considerations of what we've sort of discussed as being relevant. So the first one is whether you put a new through hull fitting in or take your water off an existing ingress. Another competitor from the last race put a through hull fitting in, but found it sucked a lot of air, and in the end changed the location of where they were bringing the water. Ourselves, we ended up actually putting a T piece off the water ingress for the motor on the sail drive, and there was a bit of debate as to whether we should do that or not, whether it was going to reduce the water coming into the engine and cause problems there. But we didn't have any problems, and no problem sucking air either. The next thing I've got as a consideration is whether you're going to put this thing in as a permanent or temporary installation. And if you're putting it in as a permanent installation, then think about access to it, because you're going to be using it sort of every day. And some of these Watermakers are a little bit complicated just to get them going. You've got to open up this valve and turn this thing on and so forth. And there's another thing, as to the complexity of operating the Watermaker. The one that we used was simply just turn it on. The next two, how many litres per hour, and does it fit with your power generation? I think they're a little bit linked, because if you're using a 12-volt one, it's going to produce you somewhere between 6 and 10 litres an hour. Whereas if you're using a 240-volt one and you're going to add another zero on it. So if it produces 6 litres an hour, it's going to produce you 60 litres an hour if you're using the 240-volt one. But then how does that fit in with your power generation? In our case, we had a hydro generator off the back, and our 12-volt one, which only produced 6 litres an hour, worked really well with not only the autopilot, but whenever we were above 6 knots, we could generate water, and drive the autopilot as well. So it's a bit of a big picture thing, I guess. Not that you worry too much about it during the race, because you'll be generating water every day. But how does the Watermaker handle being decommissioned is another thing to think about. Also, another consideration is the water is very pure. So if you're using that as your primary source of drinking water, think about adding some sort of Gatorade powder or some salt mineral addition every now and again, so that you're regenerating your salts through there. We had an output switch where we could flick it between filling our drink bottles and filling the water tank. So, and essentially, whenever we were going greater than 6 knots, we were just producing water, and we found that 6 litres an hour for a few hours a day produced enough drinking water and would give us a shower every couple of days. And the other thing I want to mention also is that you've got to make sure that you're compliant in terms of the water requirements going across the start line with the special regs or wherever it's sitting. What else for Watermakers? Push button. There's a couple of recommendations that I've found. The Rain Man Watermakers, local Watermakers, manufactured in Sydney, I think. The Catadin is a long-time Watermaker. That's the one that we used. I did ask my son, I said, I'm doing a presentation on Watermakers. Have you got anything to add? Freeze-dried lasagna is awesome, he said. And there's also a contact here for Glenn Seacombe, who's the local guy at Sandringham. George calls him the Dunny Man. Not quite sure why, George, but he is very skilled at putting Watermakers in and connecting everything up. The benefit for us, so prior to the last Osaka, we went through a whole lot of presentations, and one of them was with Rosie Callahan, who was talking to us about medical things, and seemed to concentrate on a thing called gunnel bum. But if you've got a Watermaker and you've got yourself a hot water system, then that takes all that out of play. So your personal hygiene is quite important, getting through 30 odd days at sea. And something that I highly recommend is a method of getting hot water as well. You could use a solar bag if you like. We installed this thing, which is on the screen now, which is essentially a secondary heat exchanger off your motor, and it produced hot water as long as the motor was running. And we found that incredibly satisfying to make sure that we, hygienically we were clean, and it just made you feel good having a hot shower every now and again. So that's it for Watermakers. We used one. I would not do another Osaka without one. That's just my recommendation. Next slide, please. Yep, questions.
We've just got a comment there, Rod, that from Kevin, who used a GSC UK Nautilus 12 volt VDC Watermaker. And it was no proprietary comments, so there's just a comment in the chat if people haven't seen it.
Thanks for that, Rod. Looks like, okay, there's another question from Peter Downey. Make sure you run your Watermaker regularly to get rid of the nasty smells.
You sure that's not just chipper, Pete?
He's a problem, but that's not the main problem. It's the organisms in the filters dying.
Yep.
And you need to out regularly.
Yeah,
Well,
so
whilst you're doing the
any
race
tips?
there, you're making water every day. I think it's sort of just leading up to the fact and also on your way home potentially. But, you know, during the race, probably not a great problem.
Okay, any tips for spares or maintenance on these Watermakers, Rod?
Yeah, we took a few filters with us. We actually never changed it because the water was good with one filter. I think it's the same as what Martin was saying with the engines. You really need to know how these things work so that you can problem solve them if they don't work. And when you're selecting one, have a look at how you need to operate them because I know just in the one range, the 240 volt operating procedure was like 5 to 10 steps just to get your water going, whereas the 12 volt one, you just flicked it on, you know. So that was part of our selection criteria, the simplicity of it all, you know.
Excellent. So did you obviously run the Watermaker while the engine was running? You're going to do a charge?
We would normally sync it in. So as soon as our hydro generator was producing power, and that was over 6 knots, we would have the Watermaker working. We would have the engine on probably about an hour before running the HF just to make sure we were topped up there. And whenever the engine was on, we would have the Watermaker going because we were only producing 6 litres an hour. So it wasn't sort of really running it at will. But one of our other competitors, they had the 240 volt version and they were producing 60 litres an hour and never had an issue.
Sure. So going back to the NOR, there's a minimum amount of water you have to carry. So this Watermaker is in addition to that for like I said, for hygiene and having showers, etc. Okay, so thanks very much for that, Rod. So we'll just want to thinking about our clothing and what's going to be suitable. So Paul Schultz from Musto and Bolle is a past competitor and invites you to talk to him about the best options. His details are also up on the latest newsletter. So Musto, the official clothing partner to the Melbourne Osaka, has a solution for all your needs. So previous competitor in the 2000 edition and participant in the 2025 race, the secretary, Paul Schultz from Musto and Bolle Australia, will be available to talk through any requirements you may have, or just even to have a chat around his experience. All competitors in the race will receive a preferred rate for a Musto kit or Bolle eyewear. So please reach out to Paul Schultz at pschultz@oceanclothing.group.com.au. So this race is unique only for the challenging race course, but a wide range of weather conditions, and from the cooler waters in Victoria and Bass Strait through to the extreme heat and humidity of the tropics, which is also finishing in generally a cooler, or I won't say cooler, cold climate in Japan. What you wear is critical to keep you on top of your game. So, you know, top of the range Gore-Tex is definitely the way to go for the Osaka race. And I'm sure Musto will look after you for your clothing. So just to wrap up, so thank you. We've got to mention our sponsors in here again. So thanks to everyone for participating in this, and also our great presenters, which is very wide and varied in these topics. So we've got the next session coming up on the 12th of June, same time. So that is again our last boat preparation presentation, and that's going to be on navigation, weather, and some more details of the qualifying passage. We're going to have a sailmaker from Doyle, Australia here from Melbourne. It's going to give us a presentation on sail selection. and some additional equipment. So we look forward to that session in a couple of weeks' time. So that's it. So thank you very much for everyone for participating. Any quick questions, please put in the chat.
You there, Paul?
Yes, I am, George. Have you got something to say?
Yeah. Look, just a big thanks to all the presenters tonight. Really first class, I thought. I thought probably need an explanation about the dunny man. Most people I find are christened with the wrong names. So to help me remember them, I give them another name. And of course, the dunny man is very good with dunnies. He provided a good dunny for my boat, which is both salt and fresh. So we don't have a stinking dunny on the bay or when we're not offshore, and we just switch over to the saltwater dunny offshore. So thanks again. You have heard me call another presenter soapbox, so don't ask me what the other names are. You might get a surprise. But thanks all. And just one other thing on the sponsorship. In addition to the ones that have already been mentioned tonight, we will have, courtesy of the Melbourne City Council, battle flags, which will be provided to all the entrants prior to the end of the year races, so you can fly them with pride when you get into Hobart. So thanks again all.
Okay, thanks for that, George. So yeah, so everyone have a good night, and we'll hopefully see you for the next session on the 12th of June.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
See ya.
Right.
Okay,
Bye.
see you everyone. Bye.